so far, quick review. Flight is going to have some basic data attributes plus two parts: the departure info and the arrival info. The airlines obviously are somewhere in the back with this information about aircrafts and the names of airlines. The clock is just an integer, just as dumb as it can be. It is getting set, and everything is like, okay, that's the time that we have. So we essentially work with snapshots of frozen time and trying to, while assuming that the clock is actually running, but it's stopped, and we're working with that oversimplified model. So what should we be able to do with this whole arrangement? Okay, the menu. Set the clock. Delete all existing aircraft flight schedule records and start over. So essentially it's the same as exiting the program and coming back. But it's specific to, I guess it's not even specific to an airline. It's like delete all data structures and erase them all and just start over. Okay, that's fine. So the user should be able to add a new airline and perhaps specify the aircraft data alongside with that, so that you essentially, when something like this happens, we simply begin to interrogate the user, say, okay, specify the name of the airline, specify the airline code, specify the model of an aircraft, specify the capacity of an aircraft. They have to type this all in, and we accept that. And we perhaps could tell them, okay, the new airline is being created, or whatever the message is. Okay, so obviously you can't create any flights before we have any airline and aircraft data, because flight will require information related to an airline. Okay, so here's the airline. So perhaps if I say add flight, it would be useful to instantly print. So someone says, number 4, add flight. So it'd be perhaps desirable to print the list of existing airlines so that we can quickly pick from the list, as opposed to try to remember what it was before we entered the airline. No duplicate flight numbers should be allowed within the same airline. That's interesting. How do you prevent duplicate flight numbers within the same airline? That's an interesting challenge. That's something to be addressed. I don't have an answer just yet. It could be implemented different ways, right? We could do something that we mentioned before, excuse me, before this lecture, when we said that if you have a collection of something, you can actually search through that collection and make sure that you don't find that same entry there again. But also, we could use a hash map or tree map, which allows us a key access to the data, and we can quickly find out if those keys already exist or not. And so there could be another possibility here. And there could be other ways to do this work. So, but nevertheless, there's something to worry about when the flights are added, making sure that the flight numbers are not, are all unique across, within the airline. Cancel flight. So once the flight is added, there is a way to cancel flight. Now, so what happens is that, remember, the flight has a status, and one of the acceptable statuses is cancel. Just simply C. And so that means that if someone wants to cancel flight, you have to ask them what is the flight number. They tell you, DL12345. You look it up. You find it in those records. You locate the flight object that already sits somewhere in memory, and you simply set that field to C, and it's canceled. So there is no way to delete a flight, but you can cancel a flight. Show flight information. Again, the same prompt. Perhaps you should give us the flight number, which will of course include the airline code in front. and then you can just display all information, the flight number, the departure, arrival, and all that. Also, show all departures for a particular airport on a given day of the week. That makes sense. So let's show all, flights that are perhaps, that's supposed to depart from particular airport on Monday, and we need to find these flights and show the statuses. Based on current time, list all of the scheduled flights and those that already departed. So it's interesting. So departures could have different statuses, right? So you have a departure an hour ago, we got to say in flight. If it's the departure, an hour from now, we can say scheduled. So that needs to be determined on the fly as we look at the current time setting. So the current time setting, remember, first thing that we did, we said set the clock. All right, so we set the clock, and based on that clock, if you change that clock and you say show departures and so forth, we're going to be showing departed versus already arrived versus scheduled and so forth. So we really need to be checking every status, comparing with and assuming that the schedule works perfect. So there's no delays, there's no any kind of issues. It's always like, if it's past the arrival time, then we say, all right, it's already arrived, something like that. So it doesn't have to be perfect in my mind. I mean, in my view, just think, do something that's reasonable, do something that makes sense. I'm not going to argue with you that, hey, that should have been showing arrived versus departed or something like that. So that's not my concern, but at least some consideration needs to be given to the existing schedule and the current time, and that should make a difference in terms of how you display the information. And we even include the flight that got canceled because that just makes sense to see the whole schedule. Okay, so if we can show the departures, why not show the arrivals, right? So here we can show the arrivals and scheduled arrivals for a particular airport. So remember, each flight has two sides, the departure information and the arrival. So we have two reports to make it possible to run for a particular airport. And we say, show us everything that's supposed to be arriving here, right? So search for these flights. Interesting, find flights between the two airports. I'm saying that this is for an extra credit. Don't waste any time writing this function unless you already finished all other things listed above. So although this is an interesting challenge, some people just run out of things to do. So I'm telling you, how about you can find flights between the two airports that I could possibly buy a ticket for, right? So, and I say Boston and LAX, and is there anything? And part of it is that there could be connecting flights, right? So there's no direct flight, but this is for a challenge. Obviously, this is something, once we master all the basics about, then if there's time left, then you can try to play with some programming that would be finding those flights, connecting airports, and possibly even go as far as finding connecting flights. All right. So if there is no direct flight, or showing both, combination of both. All right. So this is the set of challenges. So let's try to consolidate this discussion a little bit. And what I typically do, I just do this. I open something like a notepad, right, or other very simple editor. And in that editor, let me make sure that this format is friendly for us to type this. Okay, so I'll just probably say that most of what we have to work with and discuss, besides menu, everything is like business tier. right? So we're going to say business tier, maybe like use like a uppercase, business tier, tier classes, right? We want to discuss these classes. Let me actually save my recording and then move on to this.